Welcome to the Artful Minds by the Atelier magazine, where we plug into the pulse of creation.
So we have today Arjun Kapoor, an architect by profession and an artist by passion. I would like to have a personal talk about or personal introduction about Arjun. He's a wonderful artist, a great human being, a keen seeker, whether it is his studies or whether it is temples, whether it is paintings. I feel he gives his 100%. It's not about uh, just sketching some buildings or it's sketching some drawings. I always felt designing has much more. You need to, even to become a good architect, you need to know the person opposite to you whom you are designing, especially when it comes to architecture, because that's you are doing the designing for somebody else. So it's very important. Why I said this point is it is very important to have a connect, and with the Arjun, I have the specialty which I have seen is that connect, the way you connect to human beings. So, welcome, Arjun, and I'm so happy to have you with us. I would like you to give you an introduction, how you would like to introduce yourself.
First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity, ma'am. And thank you so much for the warm words of welcome that you gave me. So, I would like to call myself an artist come architect, um, someone who is extremely interested in Indian architecture, in anything to do with history, with art, with architecture, with drama, with all of the arts. So I have a keen interest in performing arts. In enjoying them. I don't participate in it, but I would love to go and watch them and any of the allied arts, basically. And as an architect, I'm constantly looking for ways to bring in all of those elements into my craft rather than, keeping architecture separate. I'd like to bring it all. So I try to bring a whole wholesome experience. And I've been formally educated in my master's in architecture from UCL in London. And now I'm back in India to practice, and I've set up my own practice now.
Today's youngsters always want to remain abroad after doing studies outside. It was, in fact, a surprise for me when you said you're coming back. How do you find this? What do you think about the similarities and contrast of Western architectures and the ancient Indian approach?
So for at the UCL in Bartlett, there we were asked to question everything that is conventional. Why is a door a certain way? Why is a chair a certain way? Why does a staircase have to be the way it is, or anything? So there we would come up with, buildings flying in the air or robots creating architecture. But there is a very strong system that they follow. There is the underlying principles are very clear there. But then they'll also give you that freedom to go and explore. Versus in Indian architecture, what I've seen is more than innovation, there's focus on following the craft the way it is. There's a very specific set of guidelines. The proportions are fixed. So in Indian architecture, all of these things remain fixed. But then again, Indian architecture, again, like the Western counterpart, is very systemized. So to bridge the gap in between the two, I had written a paper while I was in London, and if I could just take a minute talking about it. So there, I come up with a paper which spoke about modular architecture and its roots in Indian Vedic architecture. So today, the West is talking about modular architecture. You have modular kitchens, you have modular homes, you have everything modular. And somehow the West tries to take credit for this ingenuity. But when I dove down into Indian architecture and understanding how the Vedic architecture was, I found very similar modular architecture with systems that, you would have prefabricated pillars and, small windows and roof elements that would be transportable from one city to the other. So this is how modular architecture always existed in India. So, there is a definite counterplay between the two. And in my practice, what I would like to do is the symbolism, which is very rich in India, I would like to bring that with this Western technology uh, and somehow bridge the gap between the two.
Yeah, it's to continue with what you are saying, I always felt like recently I was talking to somebody. I was talking about Shilpa Shastra.
Correct.
So then he was talking about making a drawing as per Shilpa Shastra. So I told him, like, I really wanted to learn. And then immediately that person said, "Is like, ma'am, really, do you want to? Because it makes you under certain rules and regulation
Correct.
that you need to do this." So when
Correct.
it comes to architecture, I felt that, going
Correct.
behind, like, to the base and then, following that, this mixture, it becomes very difficult. If you are just a
Correct.
free flowing
Correct.
person, but able to merge two things, and that too with you, which I've realized is it's not only the Western or Indian, you add little spiritualism to it, like
Correct.
how you mentioned chariot like base symbolizing the soul's journey in your
Correct.
article.
Correct.
So how important it is for a contemporary architect to integrate spiritual or symbolic meaning into this modern structure, which is not that easy also to do that. How do you do
True.
that? Or
True.
how important it is?
So I think today we're all yearning more than we ever did, right? Nobody just wants a glass facade or a regular floor plate. Everybody wants a soul in a building. And in my opinion, that soul can only come in when you have a deep symbolism that is attached. The architect is thinking of these things while designing the space rather than, just putting a painting somewhere or just putting a piece of art somewhere is a very superficial way of doing it. It's more like makeup versus when the concept is very clear with the architect and he has a soul that he's trying to attach to the building. I think communication between the person who's visiting the building and the architect becomes very clear there. And to add to what you said, this I think the ancient Indians were very broad-minded people. So even though we wrote the Shilpa Shastra, we wrote the Natya Shastra, we wrote all of these Shastras, but towards the end of each of the Shastras, it would say, at the end of the Natya Shastra, for example, they would say, okay, if there's anything missing here, you can find it in Shilpa Shastra. Versus Shilpa Shastra would end saying that, okay, if this is missing, you can find it in Natya Shastra or any of the other Shastras. So they would say that all of the arts need to be somewhere intertwined. You can't just say dance is completely detached from architecture or music is detached from architecture. It's all together. And an architect needs to think of all of it together, just like a dancer needs to think of all of it together.
Yeah, I understand, but then, bringing strongly rooted, getting inspirations are all like very different things. You basically are a very deeply rooted in tradition, in spiritualism. That's what I've seen. And art was also part of your life, as
Correct.
a child.
Correct.
What is the turning point in your journey where you knew this was more than a professional project, or but a personal calling?
So, for me, it started the other way around. It was first of personal calling. So it started off when I was in the fifth grade, and we had a art competition in school, like a drawing competition, where the teacher said, "Draw your ambition." And I was always somebody who loved visiting temples. I loved doing my pujas, even as a child. So in the fifth grade, the little Arjun, the only thing I could think of is I drew a temple. It was a red colored Ganesha temple. I remember there was a Ganesha in the middle, and at the back of it, I'd written, "I want to become an architect because I want to make a temple." And somehow it started on there, and touchwood, by God's grace, I mean, here I am. I mean, designing my first temple. So, uh,
That's beautiful. I would like you to talk about your latest project, which is a very prestigious, if you are allowed to.
I mean, what I can say is that it is a temple that is being designed in the USA. It's a Jain temple, and it's definitely God's grace that I got this as my first big project. And I mean, I'm loving the fact that I'm getting to collaborate with such prestigious people. There are big artists, there are big sculptors that are on board, and people, who've reached a certain stage in their professions. So, I mean, for somebody who's just starting out in the professional field, I think I couldn't have asked for better than this.
All the best and
Thank you,
prayers for
thank you,
that.
thank you, thank you so much, man.
And I know it's a personal calling because otherwise, that small age, you will not think about making a temple.
Correct.
Your love for idols and temples, and the way you express that small little feelings is absolutely beautiful. And all the best and prayers.
Thank you, thank you.
And
Always need your blessings.
We look forward for more, writings and more expressions with its perspective of towards it.
Correct.
And
Correct.
it's so important for a youngster to do that because you will be able to bridge it very well to the next generation or your generation than me speaking. It is always better you speak so that it conveys, or the language of it, and able to blend with a previous generation, and to do this is absolutely beautiful. And as you said, it's a God's blessing. So we have some rapid fire questions for
Uh-huh.
you. Architectural element you find most underrated.
Underrated, I think, for me would be the plinth of the building, basically the seat on which the building sits. Now, you would generally ignore that, but that is what
Okay.
defines how you enter the space, how you experience certain things. So I think the plinth becomes very important. You always think about the facade and all of that. Those are features that can always come. But the plinth dictates how the building is.
You mean it's like a base?
Correct, the base on which you're
Is
walking,
it like a
right? So when you
base?
have levels, even for the temple that I written, the Airavateshwar temple, again the high plinth dictated how it felt like a chariot. So that scale, that proportion, the plinth itself dictates that.
Okay. One book every architect must read.
So for me, that would be there's a book called The Architecture of the City by Aldo Rossi. It talks about how um, on an urban scale, the design of the urban setting dictates how each person in their little houses feels about the city or connects to the larger space. It shows how important urban design becomes. But in general, as an architect, I'm not very inspired by architecture books. I'm more inspired by fantasy. I read Amar Chitra Kathas. I still read Amar Chitra Kathas. I'm still inspired by those. So yeah.
Your dream restoration project in India.
So there are two. One would be the Sharda Peeth that is now in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. That being one of the 18 Mahashakti Peeths and the importance that it has in the Indian philosophy. And there is the Martand Sun Temple, which is again lying in ruins now. So I think these two would be my dream restoration projects.
Okay. Biggest design pet peeve.
I think it's any of those jazzy gold-plated things that people put everywhere, or those extra shiny chandeliers. I'm not a fan of all of that.
One ancient structure you wish you could time travel to see being built.
That is easy. That would be the Great Pyramids of Giza. I mean, just looking at that scale, I cannot imagine how at that point they would have done something like that. And then in the Indian context, we have the Kailashnath temple and the Brihadishwara temple. So I mean, I would love to be born there.
Design in 3 words.
Okay,
Design.
design for me in 3 words. One would be the intention behind the design, what you're trying to communicate. That is. Uh, the other would be uh, collective memory. What what reminds you when you reach that space, and the third would be timelessness. I mean, every design, according to me, should be timeless.
First thing you notice when you enter a building.
I think it's about how light comes into that space, how light and shadow plays with that space. So even in the temple context, for example, how you're welcomed with those, extra tall columns, and then slowly, it gets darker, creating that mystery. So I think
Oh.
light becomes very important.
Most overused word in architecture school.
I think concept. I mean, everybody's constantly saying concept, 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 concept. There is no concept also half the time, but then that's one word everybody's talking about.
If not an architect, what would you be?
I haven't thought of anything since I was in the fifth grade, so it's difficult. I mean, till then I want to become a dentist, so yeah, maybe I would have been a dentist.
Okay, no links at all. I thought
No
it,
connection whatsoever.
yeah, you cannot say artist because you're still an artist. So
Yeah, so nothing other. I love what I'm doing. I don't think I can do anything else.
that's beautiful. And it's very beautiful hearing from a youngster, because normally it's always like, I could do this, I could do that, I miss doing this. I don't know why I did this. This is the normal discussions, and very clear about what you wanted. That's beautiful. Favorite time of a day to design, early morning or late at night?
So in general, I'm an early morning person, but when it comes to design, I like to do it late in the night because
Yeah.
what happens is then I'm closer to the deadline and I don't have a choice to sit and procrastinate and think, okay, should I do it this way? Should I do it that way? When it's late in the night, your first thought that comes in, you do it and it's done. So I think I'm more productive later in the night.
Yeah. In fact, I feel these questions, out of these questions, I could have asked so many things to you, and I needed more time with you, Arjun, for what you're doing. And I really wish you all the best.
Thank you so much,
And,
ma'am. Thank
and
you.
we
Thank you. It's truly
really,
an honor.
we really look forward to have you, you writing more, and especially in a youngster's perspective, which matters for us a lot. And what is that closing note which you would like to say?
As a closing note, I mean, I'm not sure if it's a closing note, but what I would love to say is that today, with what we have, with platforms that we have, like Instagram or I mean, magazines or anything, there's so much information that we have in our hands, and I think people my generation are definitely valuing that. We are taking that extra step and reading more, watching more videos, learning more in the process. So I think as a generation we'll be just fine because I think we know what to do with that information. We have it all.
Yeah.
So I
Mm.
think I think the future seems pretty bright. I love being an optimistic person. So I would say there is a great future to our country, and I think with youngsters getting into any of these topics deeper, I think the future is very bright for all of us.
Yeah, I also believe that because any situation or any new thing when you get into, you will be very confused. People will be confused, a lot of
Correct.
confusion. And they always say, oh, what is it going to be? Because nobody wants to leave that comfort zone and get into the next space. That's the space of AI today.
True.
Everything happened. I remember in 90s, we were talking about computers coming, computers design coming, artists will not have place. So much of
True.
such discussions. And later on, we blend towards the new.
Correct. You just have
It's
to
always
embrace it.
learning the new. It's
Correct. You
always
just need
learning.
to embrace it.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, I
embrace.
mean,
Yeah,
there was a time when people detested calculators and any form of technology, but today you can't live without it. So,
yeah,
but
very.
what is important is being good at what you do. Because then, if you're a mediocre person, then I think AI will easily take over what you're doing. Because I think the machine might just do it better than you. But
Yeah.
if you're good at what you do and you know what you're doing with a thought behind it, then I think AI is just a great tool.
I
It'll help you.
completely agree with you. They cannot take over the human mind. Must be, processing part of it, maybe.
True.
Otherwise,
True.
yes, yes. Thank you so much, Arjun.
Thank you. Thank you so
Good
much,
to
ma'am. Thank
have
you
you.
for your
Thank you
time.
so much. Thank you.
Thank you.